I'm going to read from my last novel, Blackheath. Before I did that, I went through some of my old MA essays, undergraduate essays, some of my old poems, essays on writing, word searching, forgetting, trying to find things about forgetting. So these came out in no particular order. And if you want to engage with any of these ideas, ask me what I mean, disagree, come up with something, shout anything, please do. And then I'll read from Blackheath. So the past sits in the future waiting to happen. I think that's something all writers know. The past is in the future waiting for us. To forget means to be happy with the present, but that happiness cannot last and is never permanent, at least for a writer. The woken past reinterprets the present, disturbs it, so that the writer then needs to pour oil again on troubled waters. Always ask why you're a writer, always ask why. And every time you ask it, you come up with a different answer. The woken past infects the present. But the present does the same to the past. The past changes. The present enlightens or sours the past, trivializing or aggrandizing simple moments. You think you can leave, and you try to leave, but you cannot leave. Death may be the only way to forget, though perhaps that's not even true. It's all there at once, making or not making sense at once. If you saw her now, would you remember her? Would she be the same? Would you be embarrassed at who you are now in her eyes, or who she is remembering? Do you wish that she had forgotten? My memories happen now, they don't happen in the past. If I forget, then I have no present. I have nothing. I know someone who forgets the things he's done, or tries to. His face remembers, and it shows other people. I forgot that person. They didn't seem to mind. I was surprised to see them still there when I remembered them. The past sits in the future waiting to happen, but in its own way this time. I'm fascinated by time and how it moves. And I recently on Tuesday went to Southampton to examine a PhD and had the horrible task of saying in one moment whether somebody could be a doctor, as I am, maybe, Brian, professor for or not. I had to do that. And a year ago, I'd said no. And they'd written a novel, 80,000 words, and they'd written a 40,000 word critical essay, taken 4 years to do it, and they wanted to be a doctor after 4 years to do that. And myself and the other examiner, we said no. Go away and do it again. So he did it for a whole year. He rewrote this novel. And I said, yes, done it. And he rewrote this essay. But the thing about the novel was, everything happened exactly the same in the novel before. But in the first iteration of the novel, it's chronological. It all happened in the same way. And in the second iteration of the novel, he just jumped in the novel. Anyway, so this book, Blackheath, is about parenting. It's about how to be a parent, how to remember yourself when you have a wife and a child, or a husband and a child, partner and a child, whatever that is. And it's about trying to reconnect with the person you haven't forgotten, the person you thought you were. And it's about James, and he has a wife called Alice. That's all you need to know, really. They share the care of their kids, and they have 2 kids, called Ida and Dom. And this is about chicken pox. I'll read this bit, and then I might read another bit, just a much shorter bit than this one. So this is from James' point of view, thinking about his daughter Ida and Dom, who have chickenpox. So Ida looked like a twilight constellation. A total of 9 spots appeared at intervals across her roundish, clean body. Dom is far worse, and the speed at which he is covered is amazing. That night, he is simply feverish, a dose of Calpol enough to settle him. By morning, however, he looks like the Milky Way, swirls and clusters of tightly packed, though always individual papules covering him. They begin as distant pricks of red that speak of immensely distant cultures, but most soon develop into swollen gas giants about to go supernova. And they are, eventually everywhere, covering his face, neck, scalp, and stomach. Dom tearing at himself as if trying to rip off burning clothes. They then spread to the gaps between his toes and the recess of his belly button, before moving inwards to his palate, his tongue, his anus, and testicles. Pulling back his foreskin, James finds them there too, but his son's misery is not yet complete. When they appear on the inside of his eyelids, James rushes him to A&E where they burst, Dom's crying so pure and unstructured that even in that self-absorbed space, a sympathetic silence develops, a ring of shuffling senior citizens and glassed Lewisham residents, staring down as James holds his son to his chest and tries in vain to comfort him. The threat of blindness sends Dom through quickly to where drops and more pain are administered, as if to a lizard boy in astronaut pyjamas. The doctor unpeels and checks him over, James unable to believe that his son's skin will ever be normal again. A complete covering of ointment sends his howling to an even deeper level, and nothing James does gets close to him now. All he can do is drive him home to Alice, the mother need having resurfaced, and he clings to her as if trying to re-merge with her very body, bury himself inside her so that she can subsume his pain. And she would do it if she could. He can tell that just by looking at her. She would take him back inside and once again withstand the pain of giving birth to him, if it would only give comfort to him now. At midnight, they appear in the bathroom together like conspirators, Macbeth and wife. Should we do it? Really, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. A double dose of Calpol. Their voices are lowered, as if they are being monitored, exist within some parental panopticon. They nod, feeling both wicked and brave, then watch as finally he falls asleep. Whereupon Alice bursts into tears. James leads her to bed, and then just stands at the top of the stairs like the captain of a storm-wrapped ship. He closes the house down, double locking the front door, bolting the back, which is when a thought scuds into him. He's immune to the pain his son is suffering. He had chickenpox himself, though he has no recollection of it. And the thought that his own parents did for him what he has done for his son sent a kick into his own stomach, and soon he is crying to see his father, senile now, homed, holding him to his chest as he held Dom. So the point of that scene is for him to remember something he has forgotten. Okay, to be driven into himself by the past, which is present, waiting to act upon him. And I thought I would also read a piece. It's interesting what we just had dinner tonight. You two will think this is going to be a short piece, I think. And this is about a cultural forgetting, I think. So, James' wife Alice is a poet, and she's been phoned up. And this also, I wanted to read this because it's, when I wrote this book, I had 2 people who, the central characters who seem to treat each other equally, and I also had created a vision of male power in Richard, who's a theatre director. And Richard has got in touch with Alice because he wants He wants her to write a play for him, even though he's a poet. He's read her poems, and he's asked her to meet him. This is where they go. So they're going to Café Rouge. Okay. Alice nods, but this is a disappointment because despite it being the nearest eatery to her house, Richard hasn't chosen it for its proximity. From the way he asks, she can tell it's because he likes it. Chain restaurants are no-fly zones for Alice, and this one in particular makes her wince. The faux antique metal gitane plaques, manufactured, of course, near Beijing. She's always found its alleged Frenchness risible, cloying. So much so that now, when actually in France, she won't go to the places it is a copy of because they don't seem authentic either. She feels instantly uncomfortable, something reinforced by Richard's hand on the back of her neck as he steers her across the road. It's an instinctual thing, she can tell, a loving trick, something he's hardly aware of. When they enter the restaurant, he keeps it there, looking around as he signals a waiter. 4, please, he says. The waiter takes them to a table near the middle of the restaurant, leading them across a space so centrally planned that she finds herself desperate to find some evidence of individual human input. It's hard. The waiter is in uniform, his apron clearly folded down to an agreed length. Even his black shoes, surely his own, are without a brand mark or label. The chalkboards are pre-written to look as if they are not, and the menus are, of course, laminated. The walls are bolted with more silly froggery, and the music has, she is sure, been chosen by committee to most effectively stimulate the easy purchase and consumption of hygienist-designed, pre-portioned food items. So it's Nora Jones. She's dismayed, not sure she can stay, until there it is, a wedge of folding cardboard beneath the table leg, the wobble of which was not, by some middle management oversight, predicted at head office. Alice reaches a hand for the nearest chair back, but a little more pressure on her nape from Richard steers her on towards a table in the window, dirty, as it has just been vacated. But when the waiter asks if they'd like to wait for him to wait for it to be relayed, Richard doesn't seem to hear, sitting and gesturing for her to do the same, ordering a bottle of house red, nodding to Alice as he does so, then nodding to the waiter when she shrugs fine. The waiter starts to leave, but Richard holds up some of the used plates for him, which obliges the kid to clear the table right away, instead of fulfilling any of his other, more pressing duties. When it's done, Richard then expands, answering Alice's unasked question about who is to join them. It is no one. This man just needs space. The table soon seeming small enough even for him. After that he settles, not speaking yet, but very consciously reconfiguring his body to his environment, realigning himself as if driving a hire car. She waits, mildly astonished by the seriousness with which he seems to be taking the simple business of beginning to talk to someone. Should she be more aware of herself like this? Doesn't she just sort of blunder on? She looks around at an old couple getting up to leave. The woman searches for a waiter, then jabs her index finger down towards the tip. She thinks of her house, her children sleeping, and though it's only a minute away, it's as though she's on a different planet. We're going to win wars, Richard says. It is a pawn, push 2 squares. Alice doesn't know if this is a timed game or not, so she waits. Okay, so they're my 2 pieces about forgetting, and I hope you'll forget them. In my far more talented colleague. Thank you so much. So that's one of Adam's 5 published novels, and it has 3 more coming out. The first of which is Trilogy of HarperCollins, out in April, I think. May. Boy Underwater. And he has copies of Blackheath, so please do go and speak to him about buy a copy of them. I take great pride in not reading people's bios. I find them to be problematic, but I'm going to read Meg's, because it's quite literary and quite beautiful, and I couldn't remember the cool stuff. Meg is the director of the Life Narrative Research Centre at Kingston University and Associate Professor of English Literature and Creative Writing. She writes and publishes both critical and creative writing
and is at present work on a monograph of Pablo Macmillan entitled Negotiating Truth, the Art of Science of Trauma and the Autobiographical. And this work evaluates a range of life narrative forms that represent both personal and historical traumatic experience. And it considers the relationship between such works and current behavioural, psychological and neurochemical understandings of traumatic disorders. Through our expressive writing projects, this research has been used to support women victims of violence and conflict in Iraq and Lebanon. Please.